order the meeting number 4 of the 2026 Capital Projects Committee. Make sure we have a quorum. We'll take roll call. I am here. Budget Director Mark Cornell here. Controller Kevin Harvick here. Here Tim Myers here. Board Leader John Gilmore here. Finance and Management Chair Mike Schuyan. Minority Leader John Mills here. Deputy County Executive Lisa Shamarin.
Here.
Commissioner Dan Castle. Here. Commissioner Troy Schinzel. Here. County Attorney Jeremy Toth. 3, 5, 6, 7. We have a quorum. Included in your packet of materials was the proposed minutes for the meeting of last week, July 17, 2025. I could not attend, and I apologize for not being here. Hopefully, you've had an opportunity to take a look at the proposed minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So approved.
Second. We have a motion from Chair Myers, second from Majority Leader Gilmore. Any comments or questions on the subject? Hearing none, all in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carries unanimously. Is there any unfinished business from last meeting that needs to be discussed?
I believe so.
Okay. Then we will move on to new business presentations of a number of departments here. We're going to start with Central Police Services.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Ross from Central Police Services.
Thank you.
Charlie Hopkins up with me for our Director of Information Services, and we have 2 capital projects to present this afternoon. I'll start with the first one, which it's a $10.85 million, $10,850,000 request for refresher of our E911 system equipment and renewal of our 911 licensing. CPS, we're seeking this funding to renew our essential software licensing that underpin the operations of Erie County's public safety answering points, our PSAPs. This project is necessary to ensure uninterrupted emergency call taking and dispatch services across the county. Again, our 911 system supports multiple law enforcement, fire, and EMS agencies through an integrated call handling and dispatch platform. The system is essential to receiving and processing all 911 calls countywide, transmitting life-saving dispatch instructions, and routing calls accurately to the correct jurisdiction. The current core equipment and licensing components are reaching the end of life, however, and will become unsupported by September of 2026 and require full replacement. Failure to replace will create a risk for system stability, cybersecurity, and compliance. This project includes replacement of aging telephony servers and workstations, network hardware, rack-mounted controllers at PSAPs and backup sites. It also covers the renewal of 911 call handling and location mapping software licenses. It also covers vendor support, maintenance, and cybersecurity compliance updates. And lastly, it covers the redundancy improvements to ensure high availability operations. Our justification for this request is without this equipment refresh, failure risk increases across all of the 911 PSAPs, which we have 17 in Erie County. Obviously, continuity of operations is important to us, so licensing expiration without renewal will result in call taking interruptions or dispatch delays. And E911 is a core public safety function, and it requires to have uptime and reliability are legally and operationally required. Again, the estimated cost of this capital project is $10,850,000 over a 5-year span. We have 5 phases, so each year will be $2,170,000 per year, and that will cover the hardware refresh, software licensing, and support installation, configuration, and training. This project aligns with state-level interoperability and PSAP grant opportunities as well, though. So timely approval may position the county to pursue state homeland security emergency communication grants. Again, this funding will refresher will ensure 10 years of service life and vendor support at current pricing levels, which maximizes that capital investment. So to conclude this request, the capital project is a mission-critical priority for the continuity of 911 services in Erie County. We respectfully request approval to proceed with equipment and licensing renewals to maintain the reliability, security, and performance of our emergency communications infrastructure. All equipment and software will meet the New York State Next Gen 911 mandated standards for compatibility the statewide plan of emergency services internet protocol network, commonly referred to as ENET. And if you have any questions, we have to provide supporting documentation, including system lifestyle summary, life cycle summaries, and vendor quotes. Yes.
Brian, I have a question. Are we in a unique situation? Are other counties facing the same age of equipment? I'm just wondering if we're in a unique situation or if this is something that other counties are dealing with at the same time as us.
Our last contract was for 7 years. It runs out next year. So all the maintenance contracts, hardware renewal, we actually found that the 7 years was a little stretching on our hardware. So this time we asked for a quote for 5 years, and then another hardware refresh after the next 5 years because some stuff started going on us.
So I'm assuming all counties are going through the same
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty common in this industry that computer hardware is 5 to 7 year lifespan in the 911 system. So they have to renew on a rotating basis.
Question. In the proposal, it's in the budget request book, it's 2.170 million.
2,170,000 per year for each phase.
5 years.
Yes.
So how are we, if the licenses are running out next year, how are we paying for, are we paying for all licenses up front, the 2.1 million, and then what's the other money being used for? Or is it 2.1 million we got to pay per year?
Yeah.
And that covers the maintenance as well.
It's covered maintenance and hardware this time around.
And then what happens in year 6?
We're going to be good. This will take care of all of it, right? For the whole 10-year contract, basically. We spread out the pain of it. We could ask for the whole, lump at one time. We want to spread it out a little bit. We'll be properly funded to take care of all the licensing and maintenance from that point on. 10-year.
It's actually over 10 years. Yes.
So the 5 years plan paid for 10 years of license.
Yes.
Okay.
And a hardware renewal after the 5th year.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I just had one. Obviously, there's a lot going on in this project where there is some equipment upgrades and also like software involved. What's sort of the proportion of that? Like how much of this total project is refreshing the equipment itself, and what portion of this is sort of the software, the licensing, the service?
I have to admit the software licenses and maintenance are the lion's share of it. I don't have exact numbers in front of me, but hardware isn't cheap. But I'll tell you that year-to-year maintenance, so we have 24/7 coverage with 2 hours response time because it's not we need. That's where it's costly. Yes.
This is only for PSAPs. It's not for, say, charms replacement.
No.
That's all going well to Hexagon. That's all proceeding as planned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions on this proposal? Not. 1 second.
Right, the second proposal we have, I gave you all the handouts. There are 2 handouts. There's one that has a diagram on it. The other one has the financials on this thing. This second request, it's a big project and it's tied to several different things. We are in the process of trying to work through having a public safety training facility collaboration with ECC that will have Buffalo fire training, classroom training go to ECC North. And by vacating that space, we are asking for the classrooms numbers 133 and 135 along with storage room number 134 at the Erie County Fire Training Academy located at 3059 Broadway in Cheektowaga to become a secondary call center / hot backup public safety answering point for Erie County's 911 Communications Center. So basically, we're looking. It's not the infrastructure itself is not going to be changed. This is simply carpeting and paint on the wall, reallocating that current space to add 18 additional workstations that will allow us to dispatch and take calls at the EOC / fire training facility. This facility will ensure continuity of operations. My biggest concern when I got to CPS was, what happens if we have an emergency at 45 Elm Street to our people on the 3rd floor that are taking in these calls and dispatching? And the answer I got was, well, they're here to hang on to the cord until they burn to death, basically. They got to stay there till they can't stay anymore. And that was very unsettling to me. It didn't make a lot of sense because then the next process is a long rollover process where the calls then roll over to other PSAPs that are not equipped or understand any of the things that happen throughout the entire county until our people can get from Elm Street all the way to Broadway, get set up, and then, get back on our game. So this request here is to use that classroom location, add 18 workstations to give us a lot more flexibility. Obviously, if something happens at 45 Elm Street, we can just flow easily over to Broadway. It would actually function at the exact same time. It's not even a thing where we'd have one going and not the other. We'd have both going at all times. So in essence, half our staff can be assigned there. And again, it will be assigned there on a daily basis so that if anything happens at either location, no one feels any pain throughout the county. And again, we're responsible for this. We're responsible for receiving and dispatching emergency calls for police, fire, and EMS across the entire region. And if we have that single point failure right now, we're in a bad spot. So this seems like a reasonable resolution to that issue. So that's why we're requesting this is a $2.5 million one-time deal. Again, you have the setup out there. You see how we utilize the 2 classrooms and then the storage facility to squeeze in 18 of these workstations that will be fully operational, fully kitted up, the same as we have at 45 Elm Street. And again, we're just utilizing the same space we currently own, so that doesn't cost us any additional things. Again, it'll allow us to have either a third or half of our staff assigned there daily, and that includes Buffalo Police, hopefully Buffalo Fire, and then Erie County Sheriffs as well as MERS. Can all have staff there at all times so that we can go there. And obviously, if we ever have an EOC, if we're operational there, it'll make that direct line of contact with our communications that can be right there in house. So this is why we're doing that. I think another benefit of having this is obviously the building's county owned, so it doesn't require any additional funding. It's strategically located, as far as in Cheektowaga, and it has the wiring and everything we already have necessary to do this. And we have it's currently our backup location, which we have little small laptops and that pop up out of a drawer. But you don't have access to all the different screens like Rapid SOS and all these different things that we purchased countywide to assist us in properly call taking and dispatching. And then the main reason I see this as a thing we should be doing is, we're looking towards consolidation of these PSAPs. Of the 17 we have, it's becoming clear to me, they just had a test come out for police complaint writers. And I was told yesterday there are 50 people that are on that list. That's before they even take the typing part. So I think we're going to get to a critical place of people being able to be call takers. And I think that by virtue of that alone, I think the towns and villages are going to have a hard time manning their PSAPs. And I see it as a place where, they'll have no choice but to try to come to the county to take over these call taking and dispatching services for them. I've already been reached out by 2 major agencies in Erie County that would add 140,000 calls to our current call taking capabilities if they were to come over to Central Police Services. We have 40 stations at 45 Elm. That would not be enough. If we really intend to consolidate Erie County, these PSAPs would not be enough space. We need to have more space. We need to have more units available. This would put us at 58, which is something we can get really started to show we have the capacity to be a single PSAP whenever it gets to that. But it gives a lot more flexibility to do so. So that's why I think it's critically important. I see that coming sooner than later, just because of the realities of these chiefs of police are all telling me that they're having a hard time manning their PSAPs, and they're looking, hey, can you take on my call take? Can you take on this? And we're not even at capacity to do that right now, and this gets us in a position to do that.
What is the flex plan with the classroom space for, Buffalo Fire classes, all your guys training? How do we handle the swing space and losing the
That's
classroom?
part 2 of the presentation.
Okay.
And this does,
You need the part 2 for this to happen.
and then we're dovetailing this into Commissioner Nevers' proposal as well, because you're talking about adding significant personnel to a building. It stresses the services available in that building. But I just want to be clear that we're trying to, me and Commissioner Nevers are really trying to be good stewards of the county's finances. We have an eye towards consolidation. We have an eye towards shared services. We want to put the county in position to, be the place to go. We want to be good at it so that these towns and villages have confidence to come to us, because, the reason this hasn't happened over the last 25 years is that lack of trust. And we've seen Monroe County's got 1 PSAP. Onondaga County has 1 PSAP, and we have 17. It doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense. So I think we're in this rare situation right now where the stars are aligning a little bit, where, ECC is on board at essentially, taking on some of the training that's occurring at the current Broadway training facility for the classroom stuff, and that opens up that space for us to take on this endeavor. And then we have to look at potentially consolidating PSAPs as we move forward.
Commissioner, there's been some PSAP consolidation that's happened in the past couple of years. I know that there's been a couple of different companies went to Cheektowaga, and there's been some closures, right? You know how many we've lost, like, or how many have consolidated in the past 3 or 4 years?
Eden, sorry,
You know,
I'm
that was-
joking.
you were different.
Eden PD closed down, the sheriffs took over their dispatching. Kenmore PD continues to do their radio, but we now get all their phone calls. So those are the 2 most recent ones.
Yeah, I mean, I know, taking this hat off, I'm the trustee in the village of Springville, and if you talk about closing that PSAP, which arguably gets about 4 calls a day, you will have mutiny on your hands of volunteer firefighters who serve as our dispatchers in many cases, and a lot of community members who are very fearful. So I think the project in regional consolidation are very valuable. I would just say that the realities of actually of doing those things, I think are probably further down the future than any of us would like to consider.
Yeah, I'm in my 39th year here, and I've been with 9/11 and the IT section of CPS the whole time. And we've been talking consolidation since the day I came in. And we've had maybe 5 total in those years that closed down. But we are not forcing this on
No, we're not
anybody.
compelling
These
anyone.
are chiefs coming to us and saying, hey, can you help us?
And I think that's a really good point. I think chiefs and then the pressure that is put on town and
Also
village
advisors.
boards to do those things are sometimes light years apart, right?
And that's what's unique about this. I said it's timing's everything, right?
Yeah.
It's just you get here and all of a sudden we start having these chiefs meetings and we start discussing these things. And these chiefs of police are all struggling to man their PSAPs.
I know, I mean, we authorized a $5 an hour raise for all of our dispatchers, and we immediately filled all our shifts. So, I mean, to some extent, that's not gonna solve all the problems, and we only have a total of, I think, 8 total, we don't have a lot, but we actually ended up, we had people coming from Tonawanda, we had people driving pretty far to work overnight, so, but it's a struggle. There were always vacancies, we were always, having people working double, so
And a lot of it's just the silos, chiefs. I know the chiefs of police that I speak to, they don't like to lose control over the dispatch centers. If the county messes up, they can't go and yell at us, but they can yell at their people and they can discipline and do that kind of stuff. But the point I'm making that makes this a unique timing of this whole thing is they're kind of coming to us because, they're motivated on their end to take this off their plate. We figure out the calculate, where the chargeback's going to be for us taking this on, because it's obviously taking on personnel and the work. But there's an appetite for it. And I said the 2 agencies that we're talking about are significant. And if we can show competence in what we're doing and get to the place where we can use the economy of scale to get this thing going, I think you'll see a lot of other places follow suit when they realize that they can do it. It saves them money and they can use their budgets and their towns and villages towards other things other than, this particular issue.
Are there any questions on this remaining? I'd like to take out of order from the original agenda and have emergency services come up because they have 2 budget requests, which basically directly relate to what we're talking about, as well as a big one, which relates to the police. And kind of group them all together. So let's go to emergency services, the first one, which is the EOC expansion requires for 911 call center.
Thank you, County Executive, and thanks everybody for your time today. I did want to just reiterate the fact that I know we have in the past consolidated, and I do want to make a distinction between 911, the call intake, the actual dispatch. 2 completely different things that take place there, but working together, we're trying to solve that, consolidate, and work through those problems. So the EOC dispatch, the EOC consolidation that we're going to be talking about here today in brief, ties in very closely with, if we're going to be taking space, we are going to need some space. We do a tremendous amount of trainings, obviously, out of the Emergency Operations Center. We are in the process, but we're not there yet, of transferring a lot of the actual classroom training, working with a project with, as Commissioner Ross said, with Erie Community College. And it'll be a win-win for everyone, firefighters, law enforcement, and others. But in the meantime, if we are going to do this, and the transition from the dispatch areas utilizing those classrooms is relatively smooth transition, but the actual footprint of the campus with the result of that would have to grow. So our proposal here, and I don't know if we have the presentation up or not, the slide decks that we have can be presented to everybody on the committee, no problem at all. The goal is to basically renovate the existing building. In the past, we've talked about adding buildings off of the existing site. This would just be adding space within the confines of what we already have. For this proposed 24/7, 365 days a year facility, as opposed to now it's roughly starts at 6 a.m. with classroom training, then or other things. And we usually wrap it up around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, but it is a very busy facility. So the current facility, I think most everybody is familiar with that. In the PowerPoint, you will see the current diagrams, but we do have 5 usable classrooms. Of those, we're going to be taking away 2 classrooms that need to be utilized. We got a conference room. We have the traditional emergency operations center / auditorium, and those are the facilities that we currently have. But we need to be able to come up with a solution for what we will no longer have to make this big vision become a reality. So what we're really looking for, the current challenges of the current current structure would be, as we're bringing 24/7 staff into the facility, not only are we losing classroom space, but as we're bringing folks into this facility, they're going to require the demands of the 24/7. Buffalo Fire Dispatches, we're bringing them over to the public safety campus and possibly some of them in this other facility. They do require us to be able to actually house them per their contracts. They actually have bunk rooms and break rooms and different things like that. The current facility has a lot of challenges. The dining area, the break area, not only for the staff that would be there 24/7 carry forward, but when we activate for the emergency operations center, there's just not the capacity to do it. And you're talking about folks that are in that facility sometimes for days on end without the ability to get out. The creature comforts, the type of facility that we would need to sustain that does not exist. But we do have, as it says on the slide, 1,700 plus classroom trainings annually currently in that facility. So we can't really do both without some type of expansion and having that capability. So basically our proposal is to have new network spaces, add a few additional capacities as far as classrooms, expand a couple of different areas, make those areas comfortable for not only emergency operation activations, but probably more importantly, the people that are going to make this their home 24/7. By doing that too, and by showing that confidence and having that expandability, the customers that Commissioner Ross was talking about that are in active conversations with us are the type of customers that are going to want to see, well, what are the facilities that you're going to be housing your staff in? How are we going to accommodate the things that we actually need? So this, a lot of thought process going into it, actually we think meets that and exceeds what we would probably need with regard to the future, current needs as well as expanded needs down the road. So the capital projects, the initial funding, because my close personal friend, Mr. Gary, says you always got to make sure you do all the planning and everything ahead of time. So the initial year would be 1.1 million with regards to getting all the infrastructure and everything taken care of, and then the actual build out of 4.9 million.
The timing, Commissioner Ross, you're asking for $2.5 million to create the workstations, but this has 1.1 in 26 for emergency services, 4.9 in 27. So in all likelihood, we're not talking about the actual build out of the 911 backup center until 2027.
I'm not sure if that's accurate because we're working with ECC, as you know. They're currently looking to provide the training, the classroom space starting January 2026 to start taking on fire academic class training that's happening at the current EOC. So we could actually move on that part as soon as, spring of next year, if this funding comes through, to start getting that ready to go in 2026. It's not just getting, because it's just the classroom, we're just putting the stuff in that room with some carpeting.
But I guess the question is, let's assume you put the stuff in the classroom at the EOC in 26, you're down classrooms for a couple of years until you have an expansion.
We do have a backup plan with regards to places.
I'm glad emergency services
Yes.
backup.
I have no idea what it is, but that's why I have a great staff. No, so the backup plan is when we exceed capacity currently, we basically utilize all of the buildings that are there. The hazmat building, we pull equipment out, we set up chairs. So this would be a growing pain. So the sacrifice is to get the 911 system expanded to have, first of all, public safety grade where we have an active backup. That's why there's this partnership here, and then work around that with maybe there's some classes from outside agencies that we're not going to be able to host, but we're not going to trim any of the firefighting trainings. We're not going to trim any of the EMS training. We just want to have that part in our dust while we get this done. And because of how long it takes when you're putting shovels in the ground, we need to have that buffer. internally, they're not changing anything structurally, so they can actually access that.
What happens in the interim, where if we have another blizzard, another massive storm, or event where we use every room? As we found out during the blizzard, it was even difficult just to get to the building with the mock. I've never seen anybody's face as red as your face when you came back from literally walking.
I think I was going to make it back in
70 yards in the blizzard. So, we putting ourselves at a little disadvantage potentially for a year or so.
We would just have to pack more into the facility that currently exists. It's not ideal, but neither is the activation with 100-some extra people there during the course of the blizzard or other activations and emergencies. We can work to accommodate that within, but again, best practice in taking a look at the facility, we've already exceeded our capacity. So we want to just make sure that down the road, we're expanding this to making it more user-friendly and having that capability. Not to mention the fact that we want to continue to make it a state-of-the-art facility for emergency activations. But in the meantime, the short term, more importantly, is to make sure that if something does happen, we have the capability of taking people out to the facility now, setting them up, but it is less than ideal to do. It's working on basically laptops. They don't have all of the monitors. They can still do it.
We would also gain the space of room 114 back because it would not be filled with dispatchers answering 911 calls or monitoring what's going on in those other areas. Additionally, we can start to better utilize some of the office suite spaces for pushed out stuff on the temporary side so that we can plan for those activations in those more inclement months.
For those who don't know, because they haven't been there during emergencies, we have activated a backup. We use a room as a backup call center. It's successful during.
It's one of the two hubs in Erie County for 911. There's downtown and there's Broadway. And that encompasses all of the trunks for all the 911s across Erie County.
And during COVID, what we ended up doing, because we wanted to keep people distance, we actually utilized the training academy to break up platoons so that one platoon wasn't then infecting the next platoon. So platoon 1 would be at the academy, platoon 2 would be at 45 Elm, and we would sanitize and move people around, and it worked out very effectively. Also during COVID, we put in a brand new building, which is the server building, which gives us the backup capability. Should there be a catastrophic failure at 45 Elm, we now have the backup ability to transfer things over and continue that connectivity. So there's the health operations center where things are being operated during these disasters, and there is a smaller emergency operations center within 45 Elm. We can manage other staff as well.
So, for the committee's knowledge, we have the emergency operations center in Cheektowaga. We have the capability of running an emergency operations center in 45 Elm and the health center, which is on the ECMC campus. Or is there any other location?
There's whatever other location as needed. So we do have
What?
13 centers also supposed to be in the
The sheriff's new location.
That was one of the things that were supposed to virtual operations.
And the NFTA just said something out that they're having a small ELC out there on Airline Drive as well. We'll have like 5 workstations that people can plug into as well. So we do have some small options on that.
Any other questions on this proposal?
I had just one thing roughly related is 2 years ago, the committee provided $250,000 for land acquisition over at the EOC. What's going on with that?
we got pointed in a lot of different directions with regards to that. My staff, after beating the bushes as much as they could, realized that they are not real estate agents. So we are in the process now of working with the administration to come up with a plan of attack to actually get a realtor, be able to facilitate the acquisition.
Okay, so the acquisition is still planned. Okay.
The acquisition, and that again, that's forward thinking, just to grab some space so that we have it down the road, and that was all part of our justification for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, going on to the next point, if there's no other questions, which is sort of ties in also to a number of the things that were just discussed.
Yes, and I'll ask my communications guys just to come up in case there's any additional questions, because this is a large ticket item. But Terry Whittington, Kevin Hughes, they're our communications gurus. They help put a lot of this together. They're the ones that are out there, again, now on the push to talk side of things, the radio transmissions, not the call intake that's coming in through the CAD systems or any of those others. But again, working very closely with Commissioner Ross and a lot of other departments. There is a definite need. And I'll hopefully explain that as we go through this presentation. And please, if you have questions, please just stop us, because these guys have a lot of the information. So trunk radio systems, and then there's more or less the conventional system. We have a current system now that allows for push to talk, but it's more or less over air. It's not a closed system. It is less than ideal. Originally, there was the statewide wireless came in and they were going to put together. That program fell apart. We needed to do something because we had a very, very antiquated system in the past. So what happened was they came up with a solution. The legislative body and others came up with the funding. How many years ago was it that went into
2010.
So in 2010, funding came into place. Well, since then, obviously, new technologies have come about. But some of the issues that we're running into with a lot of agencies is they're not all on the communication system. Every community that our legislators represent, throughout Erie County, they're all on their own systems for the most part. So what we were proposing is to transition over to a trunked radio system. It's currently, as it was pointed out earlier, I mean, there's currently 14 primary and secondary. There's 14 primary and 6 secondary safety public answering points. There's fire agencies. There's 29 police agencies, 7 EMS. Now, in addition to all of the information that Central Police Services is pushing to them, and actually funding all of their maintenance agreements, they also have to come up with their own push to talk. So the cars can talk to one another, and the officers can, and as much as possible, other agencies can. It is less than ideal. It is not a national standard by any means. So there's a lot of different options that you can take a look at down the road. But now's the time, we think, to go ahead and do this, because the current system, like we said, we have an abundance of towers that we are constantly paying maintenance on. And those towers that we're maintaining right now provide service to a lot of the local volunteer fire companies. But a majority of those, if we can go to the slide with regards to just what it serves within the county, it's a scattering of things. So we have numerous agencies out there. And if you guys just want to touch base, because the slide's not up there, but you want to touch base, all of the different internal Erie County agencies that we're currently servicing, that are all doing their own thing. We're servicing that, but they're all doing their own radios. They're all doing their own stuff.
So there's social services, there's the highway department, there's the sheriff's department, there's quite a few, the parks department. It's all on the screen, but they all are managing their own system, but using our infrastructure to be able to do that. So
and that's over 32 tower sites.
yes.
So what we want to do is we're focusing now on a trunk radio system. What the trunk radio system would bring in and centralize all of those particular agencies. We tend to think of EMS and fire as well as law enforcement. But what this would do here essentially would bring everybody into a platform, but also give us more functionality with regards to the number of channels that we can utilize. So it takes that disparate where Bill Geary's budget annually comes up with a tremendous amount of money to cover what their costs are. Their radios aren't necessarily always compatible with emergency services or with the sheriff's office. Everybody's doing their own thing. We're trying to consolidate that just internally to start with. But now let's go a little bit further with regards to that, because as Commissioner Ross will tell you, anybody else in this room here, there are a lot of agencies that are running out of options. The city of Buffalo Police, as well as fire, their push to talk technology is getting to the point where they're holding it together with bailing wire. They've got to come up with a solution to this. Numerous law enforcement agencies and fire agencies. The town of Orchard Park has a system that is it's a private system that for cost is being managed by an individual company, but other police stations cannot communicate with them because they don't have the radios. They can't communicate with them unless those agencies, the town of Hamburg, East Aurora, purchase individual radios to be able to talk. So people are not able to talk to one another. There's an appetite now, law enforcement, all these dispatches to say, hey, look, if you build this, we're more than happy to come on board. And how they do that, I know our budget director is always interested in shared services and whatnot. we want to do is we want to build the framework, and then we want to have something that everyone else can come to. And that could be, they're going to be responsible for their own equipment, but the shared services would be for the annual maintenance. The shared services would be for the equipment. There would be a common picture with regards to purchasing of equipment, so that we have the bulk of the entire county and the region to be able to do that, to work with vendors to bring prices down. So it's a cost savings, but more importantly, now's the time to do the public safety, the right thing, because a lot of these agencies, Amherst is going through a version of this right now where they've got tremendous amounts of funding, but they're trying to chart their own course. Are they going to go with Niagara County's system, their trunk system? Are they going to go with a new system maybe that the county's talking about? Commissioner Ross, I don't know if you want to talk about the excitement out there, but there are a lot of different agencies that would climb on board. There would be recouping of funds and constant maintenance of that, as opposed to just us now maintaining a system, a shell of a system, as well as those tower sites.
And I was at a chiefs meeting last September, and someone presented trunk systems to the chiefs of police, and they were all interested in supporting this venture. Of course, the issue always comes down to the cost of these things. You have in your possession a letter of support from the Erie County Chiefs of Police Association. As a group, they're supporting this. You know, every agency has maybe a couple of towers or the UHF channels. Whatever they can do to support this endeavor, they're willing to participate in and be partners in this endeavor going forward. So it is something that there's an appetite to. They said communication when an emergency event happens is very wonky. I think there was an example of this boat accident last night where, you know, people could not talk to each other, could not communicate. And in a critical incident, mass critical incident, it's not something we should be sustaining. We should be working towards a solution on that.
Greg, you want to talk about the breakdown in communications?
Yeah, unfortunately, last night there was a pretty serious accident on the waterway, and the locals called for assistance from the county. We also contacted Niagara County. It involved a plethora of agencies. The comms guys had to go because there were some communication issues. You know, it's almost anecdotal that as we're closing in on another anniversary of 9/11, that the number one thing that came away from the after action report was communications. And here we are 24 plus years later, and we're still talking about the fact that we have disparate systems. Here's an opportunity for us to move forward and better protect all of the citizens. It goes beyond first responders. A great example of how a trunking system would work is Mr. Geary's highway vehicles may go to, say, Hamburg to support them, and they may bring the trucks from Clarence and Amherst, Tonawanda. They can all turn on that channel and talk to one another to figure out how they're going to combat the snow event, we'll say, for that sake. So last night's failures for the ability of two helicopters to rotate in and off, that was unfortunate. All of the different agencies' boats, there was at least 7 agencies that had marine units in the water, trying to effect some type of rescue or identify the souls that were on that boat that we lost. Unfortunately, it was very difficult to communicate. We went back to some rudimentary things that just shouldn't have occurred. We should have been able to turn on a channel and have that work. This, as terrible as its timing is, it supports exactly what this whole system is there for. And moving forward, that's the wave of the future. We're only looking to bring ourselves into the modern times when it comes to communications.
And why the buy-in? Because it gives us more flexibility with regards to the minimum channels that we already have existing. We'll have to utilize some of these other agencies for their channels, but it's a closed system. So if the town of Orchard Park or Amherst or others want to maintain their own integrity of the information and communications, they can do that. It's not everybody listens, or the county has a say necessarily in how you dispatch or you do whatever. This county has a say in the build out. The county has a say in what the equipment is, so that we're all on the same page and there's an economy of scale. But I think also on top of that, you call your own shots. And that's why chiefs of police with regards to this versus an open system where it's anybody can listen, the county's not there to control. The county has built, our attitude has always been, if we build it, we're more than willing to take you on and figure out ways of doing it. We have never pushed for other folks to come into our facility and saying we're taking anything away. But the chiefs of police are excited about this because they maintain their own integrity with regards to how they handle things. But it's a much better system, and it has a much more robust capability and takes us further down the roads, makes us compatible with contiguous counties as well as cross-border issues. And we think it's the smart time to do this because of the fact there is that appetite to move forward.
Question, you had mentioned about future cost absorption. That's exactly what we were with other communities paying into. So if we're going to invest $30 million to create the trunk system, I'm sure the other towns and police chiefs and so forth want to be involved because they don't want to pay for it. And as we know, there often are a lot of headaches associated with response, which have less to do with communications and much to do with some people not wanting to work with other communities. Never happened. Okay. So my question is, if we are to invest this money, how do we charge communities afterwards for tapping into the system and then saving them a lot of money? Or are we just going to build it and say, here you go, it's free for everyone's use? I also think this is an opportunity would easily eliminate the need for all those other PSAPs that exist. There's no need for all these separate PSAPs when you have this trunk system that works countywide. For everyone's knowledge, we're one of the few counties that has still all these PSAPs. Most of them are down to 1 or 2 at most, including large ones like Monroe County and Rochester. So what I'd like to see is if we're moving in this direction, we do move in this direction. Now I think we also need to ensure that a lot of these kingdoms and fiefdoms that don't like to disappear would have to merge into a general system.
So to answer your question, we feel as if we're in a good spot with regards to that. So let's just take the totality of county services, whether it's the sheriff's, emergency services, highways, whatever. That's a great place to start. But the law enforcement side, which pretty much predominantly oversees the dispatch centers, they're the ones that are coming to us and to Commissioner Ross. And they're the ones that are saying we need to come up with a solution. The amount of money that each town spends currently to maintain and sustain their own capabilities is incredible. So they're looking forward to a savings. They're looking forward to having money that they can reinvest back into their fire department or their police agency. We think that the discussion is there. We think there's paths to be able to do that. We had a consultant as part of our communications plan that we recently hired that's putting that together, taking a look at how do they do it in Monroe County? How do they charge back? What do they charge back? Each agency will bring something different, but our concern all along has been this ongoing maintenance of things. So you heard about the expense, the $10 million that CPS is looking for. Those are all expenses that are going out to individual communities because, as you pointed out, because of those PSAPs. So whereas this is sticker shock with regards to the price tag on this, this is the introduction to hopefully doing exactly what you said. Get people to realize there's no difference between John, who lives on your street dispatching, or someone that's down at 45L. As a matter of fact, there's better capabilities because of the technology that we have today.
So if we spend $30 million, this will create the county trunk system. What about town, say Orchard Park? They then have to spend the money to buy their own communications to tie into the system.
End user equipment, yes. We would not be covering end user equipment. You know, one of the things that I think that is poignant to mention is that if you looked at the map that showed the other areas of the state that are using systems like this, they took a chance, whether it's Monroe County or Onondaga, which by the way is big because it covers 5 counties. That's why there's such a big conglomeration, or Long Island with both Suffolk and Nassau. They provided that system, took a chance, and they saw the successes, which allowed for the migration over to those singular PSAPs because they put those systems in place. And we're seeing that that's something that we should have considered years ago. And that's another reason why we're pushing it forward, is we're getting to end of life of a lot of our backbone infrastructure on our communications. And at the same time, so are all of those other PSAPs.
Mr. Ross, how much money does the NFTA have to grant for this kind of thing?
I believe they have $15 million. $15, $25 million is one of the two that they have set aside already, because NFTA is holding their together to buy bubble gum as well.
And Mark Cornell, how much money do we give the NFTA every year?
$40 million.
Yeah. So and we're working with them. Tom George from NFTA, and we've been talking to him because they're about 2 years ahead of us in this process, and they're going Trump. because that's the way to go. And UHF channels are becoming harder and harder to come by, right? They're
Absolutely.
fading away. If you don't kind of act, it might have the option down the road to do it. But they're down the road, but they're actually offering to slow down a little bit to work with us if we can get our ducks in line, so we can kind of leverage that money, that relationship with them to take a little bit of the bite away from Erie County's side and kind of go off in this direction with them as well as partners.
And no disrespect to anybody that wants to continue to operate the way they are, but there are more and more of the ones that, quite frankly, for as long as I've been in county government, have said, absolutely not, we don't want to have anything to do with you. They're now coming to us and saying, we need to come up with a solution. We can't redesign. We don't want to do another 5-year contract with a private vendor that basically makes us an unlisted police department. So now's the time to do it. There's a lot of positive response to this, but it's the chicken or the egg. They need us to demonstrate the fact that, we're serious about moving forward. But, a big partner right from the start, the negotiations as far as who owes what, that's all part of what the consultant and obviously ultimately a committee would have to determine. You want to come on board, here's the cost of doing business. But I can tell you right off the bat, Buffalo Fire, Buffalo Police, and all of the other dispatch that they do within that is they definitely have to be a partner within anything we do.
Yeah, the 30 million would be in 2026. When would the actual construction and completion of this be anticipated?
Well, Kevin feels there's an aggressive timeline on that. Talking to our existing vendor, we would go out for an RFP. But Kevin, did you want to talk about the timeline?
System-wise, as far as building it out, would be about a year from the date we sign a contract with whichever vendor that would be. We're not locked into any particular vendor right now. The consultant that's on board is, responsible for putting out the RFP in the end and helping us review those RFPs and helping us award in the end.
So how does it communicate with each other? Is this fiber?
What are you actually building with 30 million?
So it's a complete change of the overall infrastructure. From a technical standpoint, I will let Kevin and or Jerry talk about that. But
so today we have 32 tower sites in and around Erie County. Some we lease on, some we have agreements for, some we own ourselves. Out of those 32 sites, we have like 19 different simulcast radio systems that we maintain for mostly county entities, but also to provide interoperable communications. Let's say the sheriff needed to talk to the town in Hamburg. We have one channel to make that work, and it has to be, assigned, let's say, to that event. And then nobody else in the county can use that at that moment. So we have one for police, one for fire, and one for EMS that's shared across the county for interoperable communications. And we know with today's events, especially the blizzard that we just went through, that was not enough to handle the load of everything we had to handle. But we've been replacing infrastructure at these towers slowly with grants over the years. This would take it to the next level of being individual systems and taking it to that one county-wide system. We can use our microwave network that's out there today that connects all these sites. And we also have plans with ErieNet going through our major sites for redundancy as our hub approach, a spoken hub to tie these systems together. If you look at just county entities like we had on the slide, so buildings and grounds, parks, sewers, probation, sheriffs, EMS, all these agencies, we maintain all of their radio systems at various sites across the county and take care of their communications. Still, none of them can talk to each other today if the next blizzard hits or a disaster hits. Every one of them pays their own maintenance fees to their own vendors to maintain their systems. They all procure their own radio equipment from whatever vendors or systems they're using. I think there's a huge cost savings in the end to bring all these under one umbrella and one type of system, but it also really increases coverage. So for parks today, parks is only on the Chestnut Ridge Park Tower. Sewer is only on the Chestnut Ridge Parks Tower. They don't get countywide radio coverage that they need to be able to talk amongst their work crews countywide. So those are just small things, but, you know, on the public safety side, it's much more critical. But for all of our county partners and agencies, it would really bring them into the next stage as well.
I think one of the things you're getting at, Mark, is trunking. It's entirely different than conventional and UHF, which is what all of these are currently using. He's got a frequency, I've got a frequency, he's got a frequency. Putting all these frequencies together in what's referred to as a trunk system, and I'm probably going to do the dumb cop in the room's ability to explain it, but it's allowing now you to exponentially increase the number of channels utilized because it rotates on a regular basis. And unless you have the right, I'll say, identifier for a small term in your radio that's turned on, he's going to get what I'm talking. You're going to get it, but no one else needs to hear it.
It's replacing the equipment at existing towers? Are they
All over
building
the
a
place.
new tower?
Would need to be a refresh, but no, the new towers absolutely.
There's no construction of towers.
If anything, it's actually a reduction in towers because of going from individual sites and individual agencies across the county. We can reduce that number down to a smaller footprint and still provide countywide coverage for agencies that don't have it today.
And massively increase our ability to create channels for agencies to utilize.
We're currently spending over $250,000 a year just for private vendors to have our, and you know, it's just unsustainable with regards to, especially with new technology. And when MiriNet came, we had extensive meetings with them with regards to bringing that fiber to each of those towers so that as technology improved, ultimately, hopefully the fiber would be able to be our main path with something else as a backup. But because
So the towers remain the same, the basic communication functions the same, except for like the major equipment that we would use internally is changing. So if anybody wanted to tap into the trunk system, they would have to get the new communication equipment that they would pay for.
Correct. Yes.
New portables, mobiles.
End user equipment.
so, and just to give you an idea, the Buffalo Fire Department and police departments, as well as the sheriffs,
Does this
recently.
cover all departments in county government?
Yes.
Their
Yes.
office?
Yes.
The 30 million covers
Yes.
not just the thing, but also
End
highways,
user equipment for
sheriffs.
us. Or any county
Everything
else.
else.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's end user.
Yes, and
For county
numerous agencies have already, with their upgrade refresh, ordered equipment that is compatible.
So Bill Geary will not come next year with a request if we approve this for money or something for that.
You maybe. No, but there's also, there's also the opportunity for us to go for firefighter assisted grants and other things as a collective for these different agencies to be able to apply for those, because that's where the priorities are right now. This type of system with regards to end user equipment.
And agencies like the city of Buffalo have already started to purchase that equipment that is compatible to go on this new type of system because they know their backbone infrastructure is starting to fail, for lack of a better term. It's beyond end of life.
Is there any other questions? Because we do have other. Thank you. Can you share the presentation?
I'll make sure.
Go back in order. We'll go to this. Sure, you have a small request, right?
Oh, yeah, well, after that, holy cow, I look like I have a Veronica. You brought me on Prime Day here.
Offering a bargain. I'll have 2 projects this year, and one of them is a capital replacement of our phone switching hardware back end, very much like CPS mentioned. The system has currently been in place 8 years. We need to refresh that equipment for the Cisco VoIP telephony system, as well as that system covers your WebEx, all your meetings, your conferencing, and phone calls and video conferencing. Also with this upgrade, we'll add redundancy, like it happened when we lost power in the Rath building a few months ago or whatever it was. I like to forget that episode, but we would, when the switch went off, you couldn't make calls or could receive calls on the 858 numbers and so forth, and it impacted county business. With this solution, we'll be able to have it in the cloud.
So we would be able to receive your calls and so forth in a cloud-based system without having to have an on-prem solution. Kind of like your email works now from the cloud. You can access it anywhere. Your phones would be able to access countywide now, since 98% of the county is actually on the VoIP system today. There's only a few smaller sewer districts that we haven't been able to migrate yet, and so that's what this project is about, $750,000.
It's, because that would be cloud-based, does that, mean going forward, there are gonna be like
No.
annual maintenance costs?
No, just gives us the feature to be able to, for redundancy, to be able to have a cloud-based phone system so that we can still receive and place calls on the 858 numbers, which are the main numbers within the county. But no, it's not a software as a service as you would see with applications. This just gives us the ability to do that for disaster recovery purposes.
Usually every year you're coming in with a few different asks. I know we have the big upgrade, which we'll talk about phase 2. What else is coming on the horizon? Usually you're purchasing blades and things like that.
The big one, as I mentioned at the ledge last week, is you might have seen it in the paper, or you might not read that type of stuff. But Broadcom purchased VMware. VMware does all that virtualization, so all your VDI desktops, your remote sessions from home work from home users that get into the system through virtual desktops, as well as we probably have close to 1,000 servers that we virtualize down to 10 servers. So all that software, the company that makes it and we run on it, was acquired by Broadcom. Broadcom has now said that they're raising the cost of that solution anywhere between 300 to 700%. So
And if we didn't do it, then there'd be no virtual desktop.
we would
All DSS provides that.
yeah, oh yeah, I mean the whole DSS. I mean we have roughly 2,700 employees utilize virtual desktop. So right now we're fortunate because we have an enterprise agreement that doesn't expire until 2027, beginning of 2027. So we have over a year, and we're planning to look at alternatives in this time period before our contract expires. We only have to worry about the upgrade, the cost possible increase until 2027. Microsoft has a desktop solution that we're investigating right now, server virtualization. But the problem is VMware has close to 96, 97% of the market share for that type of stuff.
So we should expect a capital project request for the 27 year that includes.
Yes. I'm hoping that things are going to change by Broadcom. They're being sued right now. They get sued by the country of the Netherlands and won about the price increases. AT&T took them to court as well. I mean, right now we spend over a 5-year period for a contract about $2.5 million over 5 years. So if you look at the rates, I mean, it could be close to $5 million.
I shouldn't have asked that.
Yeah. But then again, also the EU is filing a class action and to take them to court about the merger of the two companies, the acquisition of the company. So I'm hoping a lot of the legal aspects and the pressure that the feedback and the kickback they're getting will drive them back to a saner organization, proper price structure.
Okay, so number 2.
Okay, number 2 is phase 2 of the SAP upgrade. Last year, we started this project, or this year we started the project phase. The GL migration is going to be started in August, with hopefully, knock on wood, a completion of the general ledger migration, which will enable us to go to the next phase, which is this funding here. So, and as mentioned before, last year's capital project meeting, and this one is that capped upgrade. I think it's the product we're currently using. It's going to be end of life, lose support. We unfortunately been running on this application. Unfortunately, we even look at it for the past 20 years, we have to get an upgrade. So,
what percentage of our county systems will this cover?
Server-wise, or
well, because we put so much money in this year,
right? Correct.
And then the $2 million is to complete the migration. So
correct.
How much?
So
at that point we're done.
At that point we're done.
what will not be completed by the end of the funding for the present?
So basically, what will not be completed is actually a perfect segue. I don't know where Brian is in the purchasing, personnel department, excuse me, on this discussion. Basically, it'll take us and get us to the newest and latest, greatest of all this new stuff. It'll also implement new time and attendance system will be included in this cost. So a new clock system, clock in, clock out system, modernize all that, as well as modernize all the different back-end processes purchased, well, not back-end process, but all the back-end systems that support purchasing, budget, controller's office, and all that stuff. So
There's about $1.5 million still remaining in some older time and attendance projects.
that is correct, yes.
That is going to be migrated into all of this as well.
And well, you should emphasize how much less expensive this is than going with a different option that we have
Oh, yeah.
with SAP going.
Yeah, if we were to basically go out and try to replace SAP, we would be talking anywhere between $15 to $20 million minimum.
So half a trunk radio system.
Yeah, well, yeah. Everybody would want to use it. No, the big one, sorry.
You're still one of the few governments that uses SAP.
Yes, yes. Well, in New York State, yes, we're probably one of the only ones that still use SAP. But there's other counties, Arapahoe County out in Colorado. We've been doing a lot of RFPing for the geo migration, the first phase that we got approved last year. So we know a lot of counties in Florida, school systems out west, but not in New York State. So,
okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Just go to health, do one project, and then personnel.
It's gonna sound like a bargain compared to yes, presenters.
Is that a bargain or a bargain?
Both.
So Public Health Lab is requesting funding to replacing aging instrumentation, particularly our triple quad mass spec. Public Health Lab performs analysis for detection of quantitation of disinfection byproducts in finished drinking water. This is the regulatory requirement for all drinking water facilities. We need to do this testing quarterly. We provide the service to drinking water facilities throughout Erie County as well as some neighboring counties to ensure safe levels of byproducts following the chlorination process. As I said, these drinking water facilities, in order to comply with state sanitary code, need to report their byproduct levels to New York State and local health. We're asking for $552,000 to replace the mass spec. We will receive Article 6 reimbursement for that, so the county share will actually be $323,280. This testing is part of our fee schedule, so it does produce revenue with the fees set really just to cover the cost of performing the test. Our current instrument was purchased in 2012. It's reaching end of life due to loss of sensitivity. As these instruments age, we start to have difficulty reaching the low level of quantitation that we need in order to produce useful data for the drinking water facilities to report. Without replacing this instrument, likely by next year, we will not be able to maintain our accreditation for these particular analytes. Therefore, we can't offer the service anymore. This may increase regulatory burden on small municipal and rural drinking water facilities that use our services, as they will then have to go to larger commercial labs and perhaps even send the samples out of the area, and this likely is going to increase their costs.
So that's the alternative theoretically would be just outside counties or outside agencies.
We're the only government facility that does this on this side of the state, so they would likely be using a commercial laboratory or shipping their samples downstate.
Do we do it for other counties?
We do. Wyoming County, Niagara County are are the two that come to mind, and I could definitely say we do that for you.
Just for my edification, this is the machine that, like in parks, when we have to do all of the water testing, is utilized for that testing? Is it nitrates and coliform?
No, that's a different one.
No.
Yep. Yeah, this one does haloacetic acids, which is part of the byproducts from chlorination process.
Just for the record, can you introduce yourself to the committee?
Sorry, Carmen Pope, Public Health Lab.
Thanks, Karen.
Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, thank you. Personnel.
Thank you, Brian Green, Erie County Personnel Commissioner. My request is for funding to support SAP enhancements regarding human capital management and ancillary information technology system development. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about what happened in 2004 to start with. So 2004, Erie County initiated the implementation of the SAP program. What was initially used was to replace the existing SFG system, which was used in the county for accounting as well as basic human resources for payroll. That was unveiled in 2004. Shortly thereafter, the red-green budget crisis hit, and Erie County was in a fiscal crisis. As a result, a lot of the IT staff was laid off, and rather than further developing the SAP product at that time, the shift was towards maintaining the existing system and continue to have it operational without further enhancements. And that has been sort of the status quo for the past 2 decades. We've been operating on SAP with the system that was developed in 2004, which was mainly developed to replace the existing SFG system. With the upgrade to the new SAP system, however, and moving to the HANA platform, as Director Breen alluded to, we will have access now to a new module in SAP. So, next slide, the opportunity in front of us. The county will be upgrading to the HANA platform, major modernization investments. We will have access to SAP SuccessFactors, SAP's Advanced Human Capital Management System. This gives us strategic opening to finally implement the HR enhancements that were deferred after the 2004 crisis. But access alone is not implementation. The base upgrade does not include configuration or rollout. So we're in a lot of ways in the same place that we were in 2004 after the budget crisis. We have access to that module, but without the investments to customize it and roll it out, it just isn't going to exist, and we cannot really utilize it or take advantage of it. So if we don't act now, we risk repeating that pattern, having powerful tools available, but never activated. Next slide, please. SAP SuccessFactors. It is SAP's cloud-based suite used by governments, universities, and major corporations to manage their workforce more efficiently. It provides end-to-end employee lifecycle management, digital performance and goal tracking, centralized employee records, built-in learning and training, as well as HR analytics and dashboards. The next slide, please. So implementing SuccessFactors and modernizing the HR systems. To take advantage of this access, we're proposing the following. The first is to engage external consultants to implement and configure SAP SuccessFactors, bringing the HR capabilities online for the first time in county history. The second is to develop complementary systems using OnBase and SharePoint to handle functions where SAP may not be optimal, as well as securing any needed software licenses and integration tools needed to support these enhancements.
This approach will allow us to fully modernize our workforce systems without overburdening the DISS staff, which is focused on core SAP operations and maintenance. The next slide, please. So what will this investment deliver? The first is streamlined onboarding and training. So we will be able to automate a lot of new hire setup and reduce paperwork. The second is to have a centralized personnel record. The third is to modernize our performance management system. It will also integrate payroll, benefits, and leave, as well as provide HR dashboards and analytics. The next slide, please. So the budget that we're requesting is $350,000 for the success factors enhancement consulting, $175,000 for the ancillary system development, $50,000 in any required software licenses, as well as $50,000 contingency for a total request of $625,000. So the next slide, please. So I know this is a very abstract concept. Like, so what we're going to have a better HR system on our computers. So I want to provide a couple of real world examples on where we think that this could make a difference. So the first real world example I want to give you is no more passing by default. So under our union contracts, as well as civil service rules, if an employee in most positions is on probation for 6 months, afterwards they pass probation, and then they get what is called Section 75 rights, where we have to follow a long and complicated process in order to discipline and ultimately terminate an employee. We have an issue, in civil service where a lot of people end up passing probation by default, where we're not monitoring the timelines closely. The 6 months pass, and the employee becomes a permanent employee and gains those rights. You talk to the department like, oh, I didn't realize that we were up there already, and the person passed probation by default. By implementing success factors, we're going to have a much more robust system in order to monitor probationary employees, as well as provide the paperwork and the process needed in order to monitor them and be able to get rid of non-performing employees during that probationary period before they gain the Section 75 rights. The next example I want to give is increments can stop being automatic. Erie County's within its union contract, its first 5 steps for increments are supposed to be a reward for meeting adequate performance. However, if you review the amount of increments that get passed, we have 99% plus of the employees who are eligible for an increment get an increment. And why does this happen? It's because we don't have a system tied into the increment process on performance evaluations. So by implementing success factors, we can tie in performance management system into the increment process. So if an employee an employee will get the feedback they need to be successful before they get the increments. And if they're not meeting the expectations of their department, they won't get the increment. So the employee will get feedback, as well as the county will not be rewarding employees who are not meeting the expectations for their role. And then my last example I want to provide is the onboarding bottlenecks. In order to start in Erie County governments, you have to provide a lot of paperwork. All that paperwork needs to be in person and on paper. So by implementing success factors, we can move a lot of that paperwork remotely and a lot more trackable, and that we will be able to start our employees much sooner. And rather than have it take 3, 4, 6 weeks for a department to hire an employee before their start date, we can do that much sooner.
Commissioner,
Yes.
on the 2 previous examples,
Yes.
the onboarding is much more related to the personnel department.
Correct.
The first 2 requires a lot of training of the system for every other department and office in county government. So this cost of $625 will only be for the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to teach everybody how to use the system?
So that's gonna cut, I mean, so we're gonna do a lot of enhancements when we're doing the other parts of the SAP upgrade, and that will be rolled up hopefully within that.
So
But theoretically, the two SAP trainers
Yes.
would have some role in this also.
We
Well, I'm just
onboard our own, I mean, we onboard our own people, or at least did up until I probably complained fairly loudly about all these things. So I mean, I don't know, this onboarding process would help at least our office. I don't know what the other independent electeds do, but we do all this, or I was doing all this myself.
But my question is there gonna be a cost with regards to having to hire individuals like consultants to train the rest of the county how to do this?
No, that's what we added 2 SAP trainers in last year's budget. They're on board now, like hired both of them.
Well, the issue with the trainers are though, is at least from my perspective, like we have people training with our AP staff, the clerical. The county is still training those trainers to then train more. So I don't know if that's the same model that you would, like, would your personnel clerks be training folks on this?
So we would tie that both within supervisory training as well as with the SAP trainers. But a lot of it is just, doing the work of doing the performance evaluations and doing the work of probationary reports, which they do now, but it is not tied in with the existing system at all. It's a paper form that gets filed. And by tying it into the payroll and as well the disciplinary system, we hope to make everything sort of flow a lot better.
And as this is cloud-based, all managers are used to being in an ESS all the time, looking at time for their employees, right? You just have new buttons or tabs for these things like increments and like probation, just right there on your visual workflow when you're in whatever the ESS equivalent is on, right?
As well as automated reminders, which doesn't exist currently.
Brian, is any of the sort of analytics that you're noting in here, is any of this sort of like AI analytics where they might, red flag employees for like time and attendance issues based on patterns and things like that?
So they sell AI features as part of success factors. Their performance or their reliability is not something I can attest to, but they mention AI.
I just know like a lot of departments don't frankly do time and attendance audits, and to do those, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, so you have to be very good.
And that's part of the issue that I want to address with this upgrade is we have issues of employees coming in late. These reports are extremely difficult to run for departments, and they have to request it specifically for my department, and it's an inefficient way, and it discourages managers from examining their employees' time.
Any other questions?
The $50,000 software cost, is that yearly, one time?
That would be a one-time purchase. However, there might be ongoing maintenance costs as there are with like software purchases. So oftentimes you buy a piece of software for $1,000, you have to give $150 at 15% to maintain that license.
And this would be something, the system you're talking about would sort of effectively do away with the B100, F77, PO1, names of forms we don't even fill out as forms anymore. Like this would be
that, as well as things like a separate paper performance evaluation, a separate paper probationary report. It would all be tied in together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then one more department today.
Thank you. I know it's been a long day for most people in the room, so we'll try to be efficient as possible. I'm Commissioner Troy Shinzo, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation Forestry, obviously. Today I'm joined by Jimbo McDonald, Deputy Commissioner of Parks. Jimbo will start, and I'll cover the six capital items we've asked for this year.
Sure. I just wanted to touch base. As you can see up on the screen, the Parks mission statement. I know most people are familiar with that, but we just want to toss that up there to showcase the fact that we are filling that niche of regional parks and recreation framework and the natural settings of recreation that we offer. Also, it's unique that today is 101 years ago yesterday. The Board of Supervisors created the Parks Commission. And some of these some of these things that you'll see on the property list with 35 properties, all of the different shelters, buildings, and other structures. Not that they're all 100 years old, but there are things that we have to maintain that are 100 years old. I personally, biannually review each one of these structures with the field staff responsible for those areas. You do have with you an analysis that we provide annually, so that it helps us to identify the best approach to select these capital project priorities and utilize the funds as best as possible to approach to reach the best use of the money. I will say that I updated this yesterday after I was at Como Lake, so there are two issues with it, two typos. Under the shelter roof conditions, that 2 in the fair roof condition should say 12. And then under the same part, Como Lake, right below that, where it says 4 poor floor conditions, that should say 3. So that's why the numbers don't seem to make sense, but it was done late last night, and I did not get to review it this morning since we were next door for a while, but we can update this and get you a fresh copy. With that, I will pass it over to Troy to talk about the individual accounts and money that is in those asks.
Thanks, Jimbo. Just a little, before you leave, if you or any of your children want these nice swag glasses for County Parks to help advertise us, feel free, they're in the back. Very nice, good. I will quickly or officially at least go over the 2026 ask, our capital accounts. The first item is our general. For those of you that have been part of the capital committee for a few years know this is our typical ask, but every year changes based upon the sheet that Jimbo showed you earlier, ratings and what we're trying to accomplish. The work in this project is in accordance with recommendations of the master plan and soon to be finished forestry management plan, provide improvements to, but not necessarily limited to, preservation and enhancement to existing assets. I will tell you from 2020 to 2025, the unallocated funds in this account equal 141,507. Unallocated mean free and clear, not tied up into an existing project. So we have about $141,000 from 2020 to 2025 before this ask. The recent projects using this money would include the Went Beach maintenance renovation project, Grover and Elma improvements, including drainage, bunkers, and pond work, the forestry maintenance roof, Ellicott Creek maintenance roof, Grover cold storage building, and Spraywood renovation to the tennis courts to include exclusive pickleball courts. So those are some of the projects within that. Any questions?
You have enough to get through the year for the projects that are planned?
We'll make it work. Yeah, I have two more quotes coming. 3 more quotes coming from Rodriguez between this account and the next one, which I'll go over. We're hoping to afford those 3 projects.
All right, any questions on county roads?
The second item, 2 of 6, is our countywide shelters, buildings, and restrooms. Ask for a little increase in this year, and I'll go over why. Our 2020 to 2025 unallocated stands around 366, around $367,000. And those 5 years of unallocated, again, that's free and clear. I plan on, to your question mark, I plan on using that money for the Ellicott Creek cold storage building and a possible demolition at Wet Mansion of Little Caretaker building. So I'm waiting for those quotes to back into use some of those funding as well.
You say cold storage, can you inform me what you're talking about?
Sure. So what we are out of space at a lot of our park areas, and last year at Grover Cleveland was our #1 priority. So it's just it's a prefab building that we have our GC construct. It's cold storage, so there's no heat in the one at Grover. The one at Ellicott may have some heat and a lift to work on vehicles and equipment in there as well. But for the cost and what we get in terms of square footage, it's relatively cheap. And it provides additional storage space for equipment, storage, pallets of materials, supplies that at Grover, quite frankly, for years we needed. And Ellicott is the next part that needs additional storage.
Is that going where the demolition was?
That's correct.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of behind.
Behind that.
Yeah. So would Ellicott be included in this one, or is it included in this year?
Ellicott, we're waiting for a price quote for the Ellicott cold storage to use some of that 366,909. Yep.
Any other questions?
I will mention some of this $2 million ask will be needed for the Went. We know that we do not have enough funding in place for the interior Went, which we're currently working on phase 2. We do have 1.3 remaining.
but with the exterior, and what's going to be called the interior operating funds. So that's why we increased that this year. 3 of 6 is our countywide roads, pathways, and parking lot improvements. We actually skipped a couple years asking for funds in this account. We had ample funds. We wanted to wait till we were at a place where we were used. I will tell you, as of July 14th, we had $3,000 left in unallocated funds between 2020 and 25. So in those 5 years, we have $3,000 left that is not free and clear. A couple of those big projects are still, there's money tied up that we expect some savings from and money to be released. But this is our annual resurfacing, rehab, building various roads, pathways, parking lots, improvements to accessibility, county parkway.
We done with the large parking lots and now we're just fixing roads?
Yes, Ellicott Creek around the maintenance. We have a design and a plan that is the next big one to go. That's all around the maintenance, including the cold storage building. That's been in the works for 2 to 3 years. We have about 90% design.
But that would be a public parking spot.
Correct. That's for the maintenance area around the maintenance area. That's correct. At Chestnut, we did substantial work at Chestnut, at Sprague, at Emory, some of our big Como Park a few years ago. So we've done a lot of work on that. That's why we skipped a couple years fast.
What are the next priorities?
It would be Ellicott, and then some resurfacing in different areas. But Ellicott was a big one. We did Bennett this year, which has got rave reviews. It looks amazing. So, and obviously Lent's done, Chestnut's done.
Okay.
405 is Como Park maintenance area. This is the new one. Working with B&G and Tracy and B&G and Jimbo. We've done an amazing job bringing our public buildings from the red to the green. We have not done as well improving our maintenance areas and or our employees report. We're spending some money at Ellicott doing that. We've spent some money at Chestnut. This year we'll address the Como Park. We have, as you can see, we have six existing buildings in the maintenance area at Como Park that need various repairs or renovations. Tracy and Jimbo walked around and came up with a plan, a 3-year plan. $500,000 in year 1 and $2 million in year 2, $2 million in phase 3 rather, to renovate, repair, just overall the entire buildings on that compound need work. So Tracy and Jimbo walked around, and this will be an annual request until we get our maintenance areas up to where we think they.
So the $500,000 would do an analysis and design work.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. And then the rest would be for replacement. Or
No, and the hope is that analysis will give us a phase 1 approach with that 500 as well. It shouldn't be a $500,000 just analysis. It should be able to give us money for analysis to happen. So in 26, we actually can start some work on the buildings. Tracy's analysis is that we don't need to replace buildings as much as we should be able to do some work to bring them back to life.
Question. All right, next one.
Rank 5 of 6 is our annual vehicles and equipment ask of $600,000. Obviously, this project includes replacing equipment in our parks. I will tell you that right now we're thinking just with a chipper, stump grinder, and a 23-year-old beach cleaner that needs replaced. We're using close to $250,000, $275,000 of the $600,000. And that's without getting into mowers and other vehicle or other equipment in the park areas. So the beach cleaner is kind of something we probably should have replaced this year. Hopefully we can get through another year and replace it in the spring.
Is that why we did the buckets?
I'll take the.
I'd like to buy more buckets then.
Yeah. We better get a lot more buckets.
How much are we spending on average per year on vehicles?
Vehicles is now, we're all leased now. I think.
Yeah, mostly equipment.
Yeah.
Vehicles are all on lease.
Okay, so we're out of the buying vehicles, unless it's a specialized vehicle. So now everything's a lease, which is great. Fleet's been the best it's ever been. So now this is just buying equipment for the park areas, mowers, stump grinders, things we share amongst parks.
Are there any other like heavy equipment asks coming up? Whether that high lifts or the full size dumps or
No, you know, that's why we have a large chipper, a large stump grinder, and then the beach cleaner are the big three next year, because we've actually replaced the high lift at Como and Chestnut over the last 2 years. So done a fairly good job with that. And the last item typically paid to go is our annual $125,000 ask in amenities, which includes but not limited to fire rings, grills, benches, water coolers, refuse totes, which are up to bid now, picnic tables, and playground, individual pieces of playground as well. We have some funding still remaining this year because of more purchases. We have not done those yet, but that's our typical page away.
So this is the first year where I don't think we've had a playground. So are we pretty much done with the installation of our playground zone?
Yeah, we're in a real good place. You know, we've committed a lot of funds. I just proved it. You've been supportive of it. We're in a real good place with our inclusive playgrounds between the 5 heritage parks, towpath. There's one going at Isle View.
Isle View.
Isle View is the last one.
In this current project.
In this current project, yep. And then
so all the major parks will have one.
Yeah, it was correct. Sprague was done last year.
Como probably should have 2, but that's more of a future.
That's a
one that don't cost as much.
They are well received, and so that's the philosophy. They're destinations. We don't need those playgrounds at every place, in every corner of the parks. They're destinations within the park that people can go to, and they're well, you know, the whole winter long for use as well.
That's the thing that's been surprising to me is how much off-season use those actually get, because kids are on those all winter long, as long as there isn't like meaningful snow.
Parents are smart, players know about. Any other questions? Mr. Woods.
Troy, who does the maintenance on the mowers and that type of equipment?
Sorry?
Who does the maintenance on the mowers?
Our mechanics. We have our own mechanics. We have them separated into by the superintendents. Typically, there's a mechanic for 3 or 4 areas, depending on the mechanic, and they'll go from area to area and order a filter of oil. They'll do all the maintenance on all of our small engine equipment, all of our mowers, blowers, weed whackers. That our mechanics do that.
Now, do you have a program where you have somewhere file each mower, so you know how often to do the maintenance?
We do not. We do not have a maintenance service program for small engine equipment. We do not. It's basically the superintendent working with mechanics identifying a service program, so they get to them on an hour basis. But they just, and then in the winter, everything in the summer gets looked at, redone, ordered, everything for the spring. So we don't have to start. But there's not a specific program for small engine equipment.
They just wing it.
We wing it here. No,
it's a pretty good job winging it.
Yeah, no. Honestly, what's been very helpful is the lease program, because it really our mechanics no longer have to do heavy service on our vehicles. They just have to do the bare minimum because they're 3-4 year leases. There's not a lot to do, so it's really allowed them the time, especially at our golf courses. Our mechanics are very busy at the golf courses. We sharpen our own blades. We sometimes sharpen the city blades as well. So we have our own bed knife grinder and blade sharpener for all the reels as well. So, yes.
Any other questions? If not, thank you. And that was the last presentation of the day. So the next week will be on the 31st, and we're going to have presentations from environmental planning, external agencies, the legislature, library, and hearing. And there's nothing else to discuss. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion from Commissioner Berry, seconded by Chair Myers. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Thank you.